Then they came back and they said, why don't we ask for another $500,000? I told them, no, they've given too much. You can't keep doing this and doing this. I mean, where's the money going to come from? So I agreed to send out another email. And then we ended up with $1.2 million in the last week.
Yes!
It proves one thing. Freedom is popular. No. Constitution in a true fashion, and many individuals come up to me and they'll say, well, you know, I was interested in your foreign policy, I'm interested in your monetary policy. And then when you come down, quite a few will come up and they'll say, well, I never heard of you just a couple months ago, but I heard you say this and I liked it, and I went and checked it out and I checked your voting record. He said that what really fascinated, you actually voted that way.
Yes.
For all those years. So maybe being a lone voice meant that a lot more people were watching and a lot more people paying attention. But I do know one thing in this country, for traveling around, there's a lot of frustration. It's not just frustration with the Republican Party or the conservatives straying or just Iraq and just the spending, but there's a lot of frustration in the young people. Believe me, they don't think they're getting a good inheritance. And I think they have a justified complaint, and we ought to be able to do a lot better. Way beyond our means. We're spending over $500 billions of dollars a year, and the national debt's going up at that rate. We're overextended overseas, which I think actually weakens our national defense. We're way overextended here. We produce less. Good jobs going overseas. A serious problem, which is more complicated. I can't go into depth on that. It has a lot to do with the monetary system. But anyway, we're not being productive. We're still living well. But we're living on borrowed money. Individuals and corporations and government, everybody's going into debt. It's not going to last. This country borrows from foreigners over $800 billion a year above what we produce. That's how much our international debt is going up. It's now at $2.7 trillion. We're the greatest debtor nation in the history of the world. And yet, we're still, to a degree, getting away with this, except the degree is getting smaller. But, you know, people worry about China, and they're talking about more weapons and all, but you know what? We don't have to worry about China invading us. They're not going to do that. But their dollars are going to come back here, and they're going to invade us, and they're buying up the world. Because we have lived beyond our means, and we have been willing to borrow money, and they were willing to produce it. They saved money, and now they're spending that money. And when they get nervous, or if they wanted to bring us to our knees, the dollar is very vulnerable. All you have to do is watch and look and see what the dollar is doing on a daily basis. So regardless of where and how and why we spend all this money, if you resort only to printing more money to solve our problems, believe me, you will have a dollar crisis. And this is what is going on. Yesterday, there was big news on the monetary issue. Monetary issue is something I'm sure a lot of you in here know I've been interested in for many years. But yesterday, they announced that the interest rates would be lower. Oh yeah, and Wall Street, they like lower interest rates. If you're a borrower, you might like lower interest rates. If you happen to be retired and believe in saving, you don't like the lower interest rates because you're getting cheated. Somebody's stealing from you because the real interest rate might have been 7% on your CDs or 10%, so they go and they lower the interest rate. But the important thing is every time you hear the government, the Federal Reserve, in collusion with the government for whatever, oh, we're lowering interest rate. That means they're speeding up the printing presses. It's the only way they can lower interest rates. When you speed up the printing presses, you're causing inflation. It is the inflation. It's devaluing the currencies. There's never a reason to purposely devalue a currency. It's cheating people. Amen. And this is why I talk so much about the Federal Reserve. Now, what I am fascinated about in this campaign is I've been talking about the Federal Reserve for 30 years. But when I go now, and especially on campuses and different places, when I bring this subject up, and even imply or suggest strongly that we ought to get rid of the Federal Reserve, I usually get good applauses for that. sinister, evil tax, and we know all about that. But that other tax that we don't like, generally a lot of people, especially young people, like it. And that is, we need to get rid of the income tax. None of that is going to happen until there's a consensus. Nothing will happen, of course, if you immediately change the Federal Reserve or get rid of the income tax. Of course, everything skyrockets because we haven't cut back. And this is why I talk about foreign policy a lot, because if we want to transition and we don't want the catastrophic effects of a dollar collapse, which has happened numerous times throughout history, currencies are destroyed when empires can't afford it any longer. But if we don't want that, we have to cut. And quite frankly, there's nothing wrong with not making the case for cutting all this spending overseas. We can start bringing our troops home. Maintaining all our troops. We're in 130 countries. We have 700 bases. We're building huge bases and embassies. And the biggest embassy in the world is going to be in Baghdad. I mean, it's just endless. And of course, I made the case that this is offensive to other people when we go in their countries and do things like that, because we would find it rather offensive if somebody came here and did it to us. Yes. We have to cut back on spending and restore confidence in the dollar. And the only way I can see is cutting overseas. And although I am a strict fiscal conservative, and there's all the programs that exist technically shouldn't have been organized, but I don't campaign on the fact, well, you know what I want to do is get rid of Social Security. You know, I want to get rid of Medicare and all this. I don't do that. Matter of fact, I take the position that I'm one of the very few, if not the only one, that never spent a penny from the Social Security fund, because I don't suppose all these but there's no money there, and that's why the young people respond, because they know that they have a lot of years they're going to pay into it, and they know they're not going to get anything out of it. Right. So one way that we can handle this, if we can save somewhere, actually cut the deficit back, and tide people over until we have a more sensible system. And that, in that case, I literally believe that we don't have to put anybody out in the streets, and that we can actually say to the young people or anybody who wants to assume responsibility themselves, you went out, get out, take care of yourself. That's right.